start recording and we shall start streaming so we can capture all the niceties of that.
Yay!
Exciting!
Mildly.
Right, so it's streaming-ish.
Well, that sounds ominous.
Cat.
Oh my gosh! Wait, hold on. Let's find cat.
Click
Pets.
on watch.
Oh.
Come on. How exciting.
Oh.
Who is that, me?
All I see is sketch.
Oh, those Twitch adverts.
Oh.
Right.
Can you export that guy in that scene?
Yes.
That's I think that's actually one of the founders of SketchUp, the original. Is it Bob?
That guy.
Yeah, is it? No, it's Chris, the guy. But he's apparently the one of the founders of SketchUp.
You can't tell because his face has been removed.
Yes,
Yeah, he has to be.
they've anonymized him.
Well, he's like some
Good
guy who wears
feature.
that blue shirt and those pants every day, and that's how you know it's him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the IMVU creator team icon?
I don't know.
It kind of has you in it.
Okay. I'm kind of pleased.
But it's that avatar that Beth made for you. Hold on, let's see. And then Ken, he doesn't like his, but he's got it anyway. So the other Ken, just to be clear, here it is. So that one on the right, that's you.
Yeah, that's
That's the closest. Like you just can't make, like, it's a miracle that there was some like gray hair for Ken, which he probably just doesn't even like. So yeah. You're famous now, but look at the shirt you're wearing.
internet famous.
IMVU famous.
IMVU famous.
And with that shirt. Can you see the shirt?
Is that the shirt I made?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your shirt is famous.
It's a shame nobody can see it.
Well, I could send you the link for it.
I sent him the shirt.
No.
Oh, you don't want to see the IMVU creator team
I
profile
sent him the
page?
shirt. I sent him the shirt.
Oh, yeah, but nobody on Twitch can see what the heck I'm talking about.
So,
Is
well,
that? It's on your Instagram, is it not?
Oh, there's a picture of my avatar wearing that dress, but the actual IMVU creator team thing isn't on there. No.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, we are well and truly streaming live now. So
Yay! So is Second Harvest going to show us some soft image stuff?
Probably not. I am just at the moment trying to work out if I can import from XSI. But I just get a warning. Mesh IDs must be assigned between 0 and 99.
So what kind of product are you working with?
Soft image or soft image.
What product type in IMVU did you select to derive from?
I did try empty product, I believe.
Empty product. Okay, so
Empty
I'm not sure
derivable.
what that's going to turn into, but unless it's a room or a room attachment or a avatar attachment, you have to choose what the mesh ID is going in. So depending on how many meshes you've got, that could be kind of a time-consuming process. But you just need to put the mesh ID number in next to the mesh so that the import process knows which slot these meshes are going to take over.
basically, if you derive from the default furniture chair, the actual chair mesh would be mesh ID 0. So when you import the FBX into the importer, it's expecting, in a way, in a manner of speaking, that the mesh that you're bringing in is going to replace the chair mesh, so it would have to be mesh ID 0 in order for it to override the default. So that's what the mesh ID stuff is.
Yeah, I can actually see lots of specify ID
I wish
for
we could
about
see
40 different things, and it's saying specify ID. So I basically have to go down and do a little
Can you
drop down thing.
Can you do a screenshot and post that into
or do a screen share in Zoom.
Yeah. Hmm.
It'll let you share just the part of the screen that you pick, like just the app that you pick, I think.
Oh, hang on then. Let me do that one.
right? This is right. Okay.
So
just,
this is what I'm
before you-
seeing. I don't know if you're seeing that.
Yes. Well, there'll be a delay before it pops up into the live stream, but it's being broadcast now. Oh, that's interesting.
Oh,
So I'm guessing it's expecting me to choose which of these little things. I mean, this is empty derivable, so that's going to be basically anything to do with the avatar.
so what kind of product is it? It looks like it's got a lot of model pieces in it.
Can you see that as well?
It's imported like all the skeletonous mesh parts.
How does this screen share work? Are you still
It's
seeing my
it's
IMVU or-
okay. Basically, when you share your screen via Zoom, what I then do is put that on screen so that OBS is broadcasting it. So there's a slight delay in the interim between what we're seeing and what gets live streamed. But that's so we can see what you're doing.
Yeah, we see your client.
Okay, so but you can't see my soft image.
No.
No. So can you describe what the soft image model is that you're trying to bring in? What the content really is?
Just basically the IMVU clothing or a bodysuit, if you like. So I just threw in a bodysuit because I tried this last week and it just didn't work at all.
So you've got an avatar replacement, right?
Yeah, if you like. I mean, I probably can just sort of throw everything onto the pelvis. Is there not a way of just saying I want to choose everything?
Well, do you want everything?
Well, just as for an example, I might want to just sort of say, right, I'm going to throw everything over.
So a quick way to just bring in the model and not have to label everything yourself that I used was to bring in whatever I'm experimenting with as a piece of furniture. So if you go back to the Create tab.
In the config, no? Or create, yeah?
Just to the Create tab.
Mm-hmm.
No, not config. Yeah, there you go. So if you go derive a new product and you choose room and furniture.
Yeah, I've already done that.
So go ahead and select the derive new product.
That I've already derived furniture.
Okay, there you go. Now if you import your whatever it is.
Okay, yeah. There we go.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's near enough what I was trying. So that's very good. That's from Soft Image.
Yes.
So if I choose this one, then you should see my Soft Image. You can see that?
Yeah.
So that's Soft Image working from FBX, which is quite good. So how does the animation work alongside the FBX exporter or importer?
So I have not done importing of animations from SoftImage, but um, I know that when we export animations in Blender, we mark it as a Blender action, and that tells the export process uh, the key pieces of the animation to export. And we create the skeletal or the morph animation. That gets imported into the scene, but we don't, by default, do anything with it because creating an action is kind of a complicated thing, and it's best left to the user to actually do that. But if you have an animation in there, we should see it listed in the list of things that are available from the FBX model. And if you bring it in and choose it as a skeletal animation, then it should play on your model.
Okay.
If you have problems that are specific to the SoftImage animations, get in contact with Laura and she'll pass any questionable files or things that you're having difficulty with onto me. And I can take a look at it in the debugger and see if we can suss out what's going wrong.
Sounds good.
All right.
And it's worth doing.
To be honest, I'm still Cal 3D boy. So I
Yeah, the format of the files has not changed. All we've done is provided an alternate method of bringing the Cal 3D stuff in all at once from an FBX file source.
Is there a way of selecting what I send as an FBX?
Depends on your 3D modeling tools options for exporting. I know that in Blender, for example, you can say, please export just the selected models. You'd have to take a look at what SoftImage says for its exporting.
Yeah, usually I'll just use SoftImage to get it to 3D Max at this stage. But
yeah, in Blender you've got the option to, I mean, you would physically select the objects that you wanted to export, and then I've got it on screen at the moment. Then you would select within the FBX export options the selected objects checkbox, and that would just specifically export the bits that you have selected. So on screen at the moment,
just looking through Max now, and I'm not seeing anything that says selected only.
3D Studio Max.
Yeah, which
Right.
is a shame, because you would have thought that would be a nice feature.
It should
because-
be able to if it's within the realms of the FBX.
What would be a
Yeah.
nice feature?
He's talking about export FBX from 3D Studio Max, I think.
Selectively export, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, selectively export.
Yeah.
It's a fairly common option during export, so I think maybe you might have to poke around in the options a little bit, but
Right,
you might be.
Right, you're on screen now, so it'll be going live.
I'm just looking. I mean, if you can see anything in here that I'm missing.
Oh, this is the SoftImage.
No,
no,
this
this
is
is
No,
Max,
this is
Max export options.
this is Max 2014.
Hmm.
I'm just going to
Yeah,
basically open all of these, and then you can have a look.
When I was using it, I don't remember seeing a way to.
Is it not selection based? So you select the elements that you want, and then
I've tried. Yeah,
It
I've
exports
tried.
everything scene, even if you only select certain ones.
I mean, I could just select that one thing and it just basically exports everything. So
Well, on our import side, you can deselect things that you don't want, and it won't go through the process of converting them.
Yeah.
But it does unfortunately mean that
So you can't hide
FBX
things.
files.
You can't put them on another layer or like nothing. Like it will definitely see everything. You don't.
even
outside of
hidden
my
items, it seems.
Well, I mean, even if it's exporting everything, like Robert was saying, that on import it will, so long as the meshes are all individual meshes and they're not joined together into a single unified object, it will list all the objects. So you can then just select the ones that you actually want to import or complete the import process on, and that'll work. So that's
Well,
an
I mean,
option.
that is an option. I tried last week to export quite a complicated scene that has like a lot of pawns, and I noticed that you capped it at 100. Is it?
Yeah.
I think you can only import 100 things.
Yeah, 100 meshes is the IMVU max for number of meshes. That's something that we really don't see a lot because of the use of 3D Studio Max, where if you might have a single mesh, but it's got a whole bunch of sub meshes incorporated into it. And it's the sub meshes that allow us to do the different materials and whatnot. Now, our experience with SketchUp and other large scale modeling programs is that the collection of meshes that you're given can become quite large with a detailed outside scene. So there's an option for rooms and furniture that goes into rooms, room attachments, to group meshes together as submeshes. And it does what it can to use the hierarchy to sort of make the decisions about what things it's going to group together. So I've got a test room from SketchUp, which has over 900 meshes, and it groups them down to about 37 meshes for an IMVU room.
That's good.
But we don't really want to have people walking around with clothing or accessories that have hundreds of meshes on them. So that option is not available on things like that. So if you're working with clothing, you're expected to keep the number of actual meshes down under 100.
That makes sense.
It's just a nod to quality of experience.
Under 100 sounds reasonable to me. Although I noticed SketchUp creates a lot of them.
Yeah, I wouldn't use SketchUp for building clothing.
No.
I'm sure it's possible.
With mesh IDs, a lot of people, like for things derived from empty clothing, things like animations and scalars, we kind of do need a whole lot of ID numbers, even though we're not using them for mesh parts. So like a lot of the scalars that you see now will be using mesh IDs over 100, just so they're less likely to clash with other products. So yeah, like we don't necessarily need to have like 200 meshes, but we need to have a lot of IDs because people just kind of tend to pick a random number. There's no kind of guide like these numbers are used for these sorts of products.
Right, but if you're building a scaler, you're probably not going to be working with the 3D modelers and FBX files to import them.
No, but you still need to use up a mesh ID for each bone that you scale.
Right, but in a product, you've got up to 100 IDs that you can enter it through the FBX import process. I'm not sure, but I think that numbers over 100 and less than 200 are available through the debug tab, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there some confusion here in the because Robert's talking about mesh IDs, but Polly's talking about bone IDs for scalar influence.
Right.
Oh no, I am talking about mesh IDs. Like like when you use like making a scalar or like various types of accessories, even if it doesn't have a mesh, you still need to use a mesh ID.
Right.
Because of the way that scalars work, they're actually a throwback from changing heads. That's how they came about. People realized that IMVU introduced the facilities of scaling the heads, and they thought, actually, I'm going to hack the code so that it'll actually work on the spine. Therefore, it'll make your avatar smaller. Because of that, you actually have to give it like a geometry number. So therefore, it does take up a mesh ID when you're using a scalar.
Right, and that mesh ID is used on that product. But if you're talking about a different product, then you've got a whole new set of mesh IDs, essentially. So each product is allowed, 100 meshes coming from FBX import. If we're talking about a scalar product, then you're pretty much building that by hand anyway. And so you bypass a lot of the restrictions that are on the FBX importer. But if you've got an avatar, they're going to have a set of mesh IDs that are occupied, and then you put on you put into the scene, say some sort of accessory, right? Like a pair of wings, and the pair of wings has got its own mesh ID space where you can populate it from 0 to 100, or even use numbers that are over. There is an actual limit on each individual product about the number of separate meshes that can be there, regardless of what their mesh IDs are.
Okay.
So there's a difference then between meshes as the IDs as physical mesh objects and the IDs as identifiers, as in unique identifiers.
Right.
Right.
And there's a connection between some of the lower numbered mesh IDs and the body parts that we're using on the avatar to associate with. But past 10, that's really up to the community to come up with some sort of a consistency. But
well, we kind of know how that's going to go. And how
yeah, I mean that's the mechanism that allows you to say, okay, this is hair. I'm giving it the mesh ID for hair, and if somebody puts on a different hair, then this hair gets removed.
If anyone's listening, that's how you make layered stuff.
That's how you make what, sorry?
Layered clothing. Layered.
Oh, right.
The term is layered. So if I don't want to override the torso, I can make a shirt and call it layered and just give it an ID of, say, 33.
Oh yeah, layerable clothing.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen that.
So like if I have a coat and I just put it on over my shirt.
Right, but do we have a layered option?
which is something
No,
creators.
there's no. That's just what people have come up with.
Okay.
So we choose a different number, any old number. I mean, there's no system to it. We just sort of choose a different number outside of 10, and it will allow you to wear a coat on top of your shirt.
So if you've got a coat and you put it at 14, then it'll go onto the avatar without kicking anything off. Except if you've got two things that are 14, then they'll kick each other off.
Yeah, that is becoming quite a problem, I think, now that, especially with scalars being such a big thing, like trying to find a number that's not going to clash with.
I have some creators putting like fingernails on, and like they used literally 10 mesh IDs. I'm like, was there no other way to make this fingernail?
So question then. So the identifiers, not the meshes, but the unique identifiers, do they have to be numbers? For example, a potential or possible solution to this might be, for instance, like if Second Harvest and Poly wanted to create unique items, their identifiers could be prefaced with polystyrene or Second Harvest and then a number, so that there is a sense of uniqueness to the numbers or to the identifiers, so there's less of a possibility of somebody wearing 3 number 14s. So
I don't think the problem is the fact that you can only go up to 99. When you think about it, 256 is a computer number. I think the problem is, as Robert's explained, IMVU doesn't want things to get out of hand. You could actually use your creator number as your unique number before you create any meshes or numbers. But
it seems like if the number is too high, it doesn't work. Like if it's over 500 or 1,000 or something.
Right. So there is a coded limit to the size of the number, which is separate from the coded limit to the number of meshes that can go in. And then there's a couple of different places where the number can be entered, and the limits are different depending on what piece of code you're looking at. So when you go in the creator, you say add mesh, and it says type in the mesh ID. That bit of code, that dialog box is capped at 99. I think if you go into the debug menu, you can put in a different number, a larger number. But then when you submit the product, it goes through a different piece of code that filters out numbers over 200.
Over 200.
Yeah. Inside the guts of the computer, it doesn't care what that number is, but there are places where IMVUs, as a means of corralling extremes, different checks have been placed in. I believe that right now the association between body part ID and mesh ID and the mechanism that we've got for placing on and kicking off different products off of the avatar, that mechanism is pretty firmly threaded throughout a whole bunch of pieces of code. Changing it, even though we've talked about it a lot, changing it would be a non-trivial process. But there might be an opportunity sometime in the future to build a special mesh ID that essentially says, oh, I'm never going to kick anything off. And that might be a first step towards giving a little bit more flexibility to creators for building stuff. But
I think eventually, though, with the internet speeds, people are going to be a bit more happy about not worrying if it's like 10 meg or whatever their avatars are wearing. So it's going to come a point where something has to be done.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt. I need to get going.
Okay.
I'll be back in about an hour. So if you're still going, I'll come back to the meeting tomorrow.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
See you later.
Yeah.
Have fun at the shops or whatever, Polly.
Having a blood test. Yay.
Oh, have fun at the blood test, Polly.
I hope you pass.
Yeah, good luck with that.
See you later.
Unless it's something.
You are certified human.
Yes.
I mean, passing for blood tests is sometimes not a good thing. But I'm sure everything's fine. So, can I ask if anybody is actually at some point going to fix the Cal 3D?
What do you mean by fix the Cal 3D?
So basically, I'm using Max 2014. I believe it still actually happens in 2012. But when I want to selectively export certain bits of the animation, I mentioned it last week, where if I make an animation of the arm waving, and I just want to export the arm instead of the whole body, as soon as I uncheck anything, it'll just crash Max.
Oh. Well, this is the latest Max 3D that you're working with?
Well, 2014, I believe Polly said it happens in 2012.
Okay.
I think it happens in 2016. I mean, I have in the past, because I was using Max 9 and that was reliable. That was like rock solid. All right, it might be ancient, but it worked. But I have in the past made animated products whereby I can be dancing on a dance spot and I have an accessory that I can wear that would just control the arms. So I could make the arms do like a little clapping or waving up in the air, and the rest of the body would actually still carry on dancing. Thereby, I'm making some unique animation.
Right.
But now, if I try and selectively export just parts of the avatar, or anything else for that matter, as soon as I uncheck something that's not in the XSF, it'll just crash Max. I mean, the workaround is that I have to export everything and then go into Notepad and actually edit the XAF and cut those bits out.
So I'm guessing wildly here. We're outside of my realm of expertise. I'm going to guess that there's something in the plugin that's not liking it. Unfortunately, the plugin is not what I'm working on. Now, I've been told multiple times that the end goal of the FBX import is twofold. We're trying to bring in new tools for people to use, and we've done that with exposing Blender and SketchUp and Maya even as different routes
and
for
Softimage.
And Softimage. But I've not been tasked to go back into the plugin and patch it up, and that's not on my roadmap anytime in the near future. I think that the general consensus here has been that chasing after 3D Studio Max's evolving architecture to make our plugin compatible throughout the years was kind of what's the phrase?
Wild goose chase?
Yeah.
But, well, my understanding is that we had a contractor who updated this for us before, and that person has a job now with the company where they're not like allowed to do anything for any other companies. So we wouldn't have the same, it would be maybe doable if we had that person, but we don't. So not that we would anyway, but if we were
reading between the lines,
yeah,
it's fairly unlikely that it's going to get fixed.
I would guess that, especially as you're saying that this is, you said it was 2014. So and it showed up in an earlier version as well.
I don't think it works for 2012 either. You'll have to ask
so
the 2012.
So my suggestion is that let's get the animation export working solidly for you through the FBX importer, and then you'll have a nice new fully supported route for bringing your animations in.
Well, obviously, I'm going to have to do a little bit more playing with the FBX exporter because, I haven't so far.
And if you have problems with that, I know that you can pass along the files that you're working with and a description of the problems through Laura. It'll get to me, and I'll do my best to make sure that you've got a satisfactory result, because we do want to have creators building new stuff in. I know that the FBX importer will do partial animations because JazzCat had a donut eating animation called Nom Nom, and that was near and dear to my.
Names their donut eating animation.
Well,
that was.
I have to see. I have to see to Robert on that one. Nom.
Yeah. So I was very keen on donuts for a while, and so getting that animation working properly was critical.
Mission critical.
Yeah, so it works through Blender. So let's see if we can't get it on Softimage as well.
You actually said that you would rather take pictures of things outside than eat donuts. Do you remember that?
I didn't need to eat the donut. I needed
to animate eating the donut.
Well, okay.
See, virtual calories are easier to get off your body.
That's what I was going to say.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so the partial animation import is, as Robert was saying with the donut, I think I mentioned this in the last session, it's tested in concept and principle, in the sense that what Robert was just saying, that it's possible to import selective or selected elements of an animation. So it's there. It's just, obviously it needs testing and developing further, but it is there. It does work. The sort of the proof of concept as because I saw it. I was shown the donut on its own. So it does work. It is there. It's just a question of, as they've said in the emails, the FBX stuff isn't a replacement for the Cal 3D, so you can still keep developing with your Cal 3D stuff to the extent that we can.
Right.
But
if the Cal 3D stuff is broken, especially if we're talking about a 3DS plugin exporting it, it's going to be harder to get that fixed than to improve on the FBX import process.
I would imagine it makes far greater sense as well to get the FBX stuff sorted out, because the Cal 3D is restricted basically to what, two applications really. That's Blender and 3D Studio Max. So the resources that would be needed to fix up the Cal 3D stuff, I mean, it's not a question of it doesn't make sense, but to use that turn of phrase, it doesn't make sense to try and fix the Cal 3D stuff for those two limited contexts, when they can use the same resources for the FBX stuff. And it's then the pathway is then open to anybody or anything that can deal with FBX files, which is just about most of the main 3D applications.
I've started my screen share. I don't know if
it's broadcasting live. Yeah.
I just wanted to show that I have actually worked out. So I basically had to select something.
Yeah.
And then I can export selected instead of export.
You'll actually get a more real-time version over here, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I was hoping, or I was assuming that would be enough. So instead of I could just export selected. So that solves my little issue that I had, that it was going to do everything.
Okay, terrific.
So
I thought there was an option to do it. So that is exporting.
I would imagine. Yeah. So I'm basically I needed to select something and then export.
Yeah,
selected.
I thought that was the case.
As opposed to if I didn't have anything at all selected, then I export, and it would do the whole scene.
But the options there, it's just not enabled there. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's exactly. I knew there was something to do that, because I couldn't.
I would have thought that there would have been something.
It's like, I'm not dropping $3,500 on this if it doesn't selectively export.
Hey, can we talk about the catcher pitcher thing? What were you saying? I missed that.
Oh, okay. So this is there's a little bit of background with this. If we're talking about the product SketchUp, for a short while before Google's SketchUp clamped down on reuse of stuff inside of SketchUp for other things.
Yeah.
Somebody, some clever soul, made a plugin that would generate useful nodes for IMVU in SketchUp. They would actually, you've got it right there. You've got the seat. So you could use this plugin to sort of generate the nodes in the proper location for IMVU avatars. And it used to be that you could use a plugin to export the SketchUp as Cal 3D files and bring them in. SketchUp does have an FBX export option, which is enabled in the Pro version.
Yeah, this is SketchUp Make that's on screen. Yeah.
Right. And I can use, I guess everybody can use SketchUp Pro for 30 days for free. So I was playing around with it a little bit today. Unfortunately, when you have these nodes and you export the SketchUp scene, at least in the way that I was doing it for a 10-minute experiment, it takes all of the origins of the nodes and places them at 0, 0, 0. So I don't really know where the node was placed anymore. All I see is, some geometry with an offset. And that unfortunately means that those seats are not very useful for us.
Yeah, that sounds like the bug. I mean, I was mentioning this earlier, that sounds like the bug that was in the client a couple of versions ago, where when I exported an FBX, it was Shannon Max pumpkin mesh, in fact, actually, that's got 4 seat nodes, I think, on it. And when it was originally imported into IMVU, all the seat nodes were scrunched together at the furniture's root node position.
That wasn't even in SketchUp, though.
Sorry?
That wasn't even in SketchUp, though, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah, but the error that Robert is describing sounds similar to that.
Yeah, it does sound similar. I don't know that it's related.
Yeah.
Because what I was doing to verify what was going on is I took the FBX that SketchUp had created and I re-imported it into Blender so I could get a look at where everything was in a 3D editor. And that's only doable if you convert the FBX back into a binary format. There's a tool for doing that too. So it's a kind of a roundabout way of getting it into Blender, but it can be done.
Yeah.
That's when I noticed that all of the origins for all of the meshes were collapsed down at the single origin of the world. I can only work with what information is provided in the FBX. So if the FBX says, well, all of these things are at 0, 0, 0, then I'm stuck with everything being at 0, 0, 0, and it's kind of disappointing, but there's not much I can do.
So the SketchUp file that you were actually trying to export, what was that of, in the sense that, you know, was it a seat with?
It was there was a room with about half a dozen seats, and the seats had pitchers and catchers and handles. The problem that I was working with was the naming convention one, which I was able to get in and fix. So we're sort of part of the way to making it easier to put together rooms in SketchUp, because all you have to do is have the node with the right name.
So then what were the nodes? Were they actual, you know, like in the sense of they are in Blender and Max, they're just essentially points in space, or were they actual mesh objects as they like?
They are mesh objects, but they're attached to nodes that have the correct naming convention.
Right.
And so if we ended up with the right locations in space, they would work just fine. But unfortunately, they don't stay where they're supposed to be.
How much access do you actually have to getting at the physical data in an FBX? So, for instance, for me, I can actually just open a Cal3D file inside of Notepad. Is there any way that you can just sort of translate it? You mentioned like binary, but
well, what do you mean in terms of to look at the data and see what it is that I'm viewing? Or
yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that since the catcher and pitcher are near enough redundant because you don't need them, you could actually just replace them straight away as soon as it's from a Sketcher file. You don't need the catcher and pitcher.
As long as I've got a location to do that, and that's one possible solution, is to have some sort of maybe a naming convention or something like that that says, you know, take this object and replace it with the pitcher, catcher, seat, and handle combination. Another possibility would be if we have an actual item that you get from the SketchUp catalog, and I've been talking to my boss about this, saying we should put something into the catalog so that people who want to make IMVU rooms in a SketchUp environment can just open up the catalog, grab the seat from there, place it in the room wherever it is that they want that.
Yeah.
The problem is, I believe, in the export process, Are you familiar with the blender mechanism for applying transforms?
I'm not familiar with it, but yeah,
there's something similar in 3D Studio as well, where essentially you say, I've moved this object around and rotated it, and I want you to bake those transforms into the mesh and reset its origin to 0, 0, 0.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, I lose the bit of information that was telling me where you wanted the seat to be. Because now when I say, where's the seat? It says, well, the seat is at 0, 0, 0.
Yeah.
Now, if I knew exactly which vertex of this 3D geometry was the vertex that used to be at the origin of the object, then I could get its location in space, and that would tell me something.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, we're just in hypothetical. You know, it's so.
I don't get this concept from Blender where you actually have to include the catcher and pitcher. I mean, what actually happens if you don't include them?
JazzCat, can you talk to that a little bit? Because
well, I mean, it used to be the case that you had to include them because it just wouldn't work. These days, you include them just as positional devices. So, for example, I mean, the seesaw scene that I've got on screen now.
Yeah.
The catcher and pitchers are all used because they're not in their default position. Because if they were, you'd be getting hit on the head with the seesaw. So you use the catcher and pitcher, obviously, to push them to one side clear of the seesaw or the teeter-totter. And then when you export the object, and that's brought into IMVU, everything is where you expect it to be. So to answer the question, no, you don't specifically need them all the time. That's the caveat. You don't need them all the time, but you do need them when you are doing things that require them to, the avatar interactions to be positioned in a specific place. But yes, you don't specifically need them, but you do if you want to control exactly how the avatars are placed, their positions, whatever it is with the item that you're making.
So the catcher and the pitcher, that's just used for when you try and do some sort of additional animation while you're sitting.
Co-op animation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean.
Yeah, it's cool. It's co-op animation. Yeah. I'm just sort of curious because we from Max we just basically make a handle and we make either a stand-in spot or a sit-in spot or a custom animation. We don't have to use any.
Which is then why when those furniture items are loaded and used, like in this instance as I've got on screen, if you do that, so let me just readjust this. So you've got the seat node that's sat directly under the avatar, but the catcher and pitcher nodes are to one side, because if you position them, which I'll do right now, in their default place, they're basically directly underneath the seesaw or the teeter-totter. That's why you need them to be able to move them aside.
Sorry, but inside of Max, if I don't include them, IMVU generates some for me?
Yeah, but that means that they appear in their default position relative to the seat. So if you don't position them manually, they appear where they would normally do, which, I mean, for the example here, would mean that you would be standing inside the seesaw. Right. So it's not. The question isn't that IMVU generates them. It does that with most of the stuff. If you don't complete the quadratic, the 4 nodes, if you don't complete it, IMVU will automatically replace them. It will just dump in what's missing, but it'll do that relative to its default understanding of what it's presented with. So the seat node, the handle node, the catcher and picture will all be just appearing as if the item was just a standard item. So in the instance as on screen, the avatars would interact standing inside the seesaw, which you don't want. So you use the catcher and picture to position the avatars to one side and then save and export. And that means that when the avatars are finally loaded in the scene in IMVU, they're positioned where you want them to be, which is away from the seesaw.
Yeah, no, I understand, but my logic is if it's creating a problem, then just get rid of them.
It's not
I
creating
think
a problem.
Were quite, I thought they were crashing.
It affords you a certain amount of control. If the teeter-totter was, I mean, if it's not a teeter-totter, if it's like you're standing next to a water cooler,
yeah,
then it's probably okay to leave them on.
Yeah, it's moot because there's nothing going on that would mean that they would be interfering with the visual representation of what the item is. So yes, if they were standing by the water cooler, yeah, you could just get away with either a seat node or a handle node, and IMVU will fill in the missing gaps automatically. So it's not. I mean, the issue isn't whether or not you use the nodes. You can leave them. IMVU will automatically create them, or you can use them if you want more precision. But their use is not consequential to the problem that I think Robert's describing here.
Right. No, if I could find out where the seat was, really, then that would be, one piece of it, and I would be able to solve for all of them.
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, what's the likelihood that people are going to be using cooperative animations while they're seated at my piece of furniture or in the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've just been lazy and just thought,
well, it'll be a Max thing, because obviously, I mean, with IMVU obviously being orientated around 3D Studio Max in the very early days, there are a lot of things that Max users could get away with, to use that turn of phrase. There's a lot they could get away with just because of the synchronicity between IMVU and 3D Studio Max. With Blender and any other application that at the time could export Cal 3D, you couldn't do that. If you missed the nodes out, it would crash. You couldn't get a functional product in. So, irrespective as to what you can do with them now, back then you couldn't. You had to export the entire thing, otherwise it just wouldn't work.
Well, whenever I'm making something that has more than 2 seats in it, I start feeling really lazy about catcher and picture, for sure. All of a sudden or sleepy or something.
I know when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, these must be very, very important, but they're really just for, the secondary animations.
And those don't usually work right anyway, because you'll have them turned off or whatever, blocked.
Oh, you can't force somebody to cooperate?
Well, you get some weird, other animation, like this sort of denied. There's a few different funny ones. You haven't seen them?
I can count the number of cooperative animations that I've seen.
We should show Robert what they look like.
I suspect you're gonna punch him in the gut or something.
Yeah, or give him a wedgie. I think there's one a couple like weird, because Matt Danzig made them. So
I saw one where
Did you
he
used to
like
work
does
with
a
him?
magical gesture and sends the other avatar flying away.
I don't think I've seen that one. But did you used to work with Matt Danzig? You never did.
Obsessed with chickens. Was
Yes.
So we've got 2 actors.
Oh, none of these are going to be blocked though, I bet.
Woo! Okay, so the locations of those 2 avatars is controlled by the pitcher and the catcher.
Yeah.
And that's really all that there is.
Yeah.
So if you don't include those, then IMVU code kind of takes a best guess and throws them somewhere nearby.
Well, it does a pretty good job.
Oh, it's a good job that was you, Jinxie.
Why?
Because, you know, we are live streaming and etc. etc.
Oh yeah, it could be like someone's inviting you to their,
Yeah.
you know, people invite me to shop together and I'm like, they're trying to get me to buy them something, I'm sure.
Yeah, they do.
Hey,
they
there's
do.
an idea.
Buy stuff for people?
No, never. Well, people I know, but like people who probably have enough credits to buy their own stuff anyway. Did you accept it?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
It's computer slow. Computer says no. The original Red Wolf version. Thank you very much.
No, I see. This is just randomly the room that I was in. So just like, it's really just for the lighting and stuff. So whatever.
Mm-hmm. Ambient
Is
occlusion.
this like somebody's just made a room from cake?
You know what? This is actually, I hope you won't leave the room when I tell you this, but this is actually an Ant Chung room.
Yes. Leaving.
So wait,
It's
where's
very-
look where the node is? It's like way
Where have
over
you
there.
gone?
I did an action on, and it sent us to the middle of the room
Yeah, you see,
somewhere.
that's exactly what I mean. I mean, yes, you don't need the nodes, but if you want to control where the behaviors appear, the animations appear, then you need to, because it just
They're like all in the center of the room, I think.
yeah.
Uh,
You
let
see,
me
and
try
that's because that's one of the other consequences. If you don't have the catcher and pitcher node in place, you're assuming that the code behind IMVU knows where to put them. If it doesn't, it'll probably default to like in the days when you used to have I think this is still the case, you have to have a minimum of 6 seat nodes in a room, furniture room. Otherwise, sorry?
If you don't include them, then the code
makes them, yeah.
adds some, and they're not in a good place.
No. So by not using them, you're assuming that IMVU knows where they should be. And I mean, this may just be a sort of a personal preference thing in the sense of, you know, never let an AI control anything, never mind the position of nodes. But
I don't know. I think, you know, if it saves me
Fine
an
with
hour or so rather than doing capture and picture, I think people are used to little tweaks that IMVU does that you just have to get used to.
That's the avatar I'm wearing. Let's see. Where's one that your avatar has blocked?
I don't know if I have any blocked.
Oh.
Why would he block anything?
Avatar must add you as a friend for this action.
Oh, there you
Whatever. I wonder if that's.
Did it do a no?
I missed that.
No,
Sorry.
it didn't do anything. I don't know. Wait.
Look, you're doing your thing together here, and he doesn't see it yet.
Yeah, true.
Oh,
well,
delayed.
you know,
The-
this is
delay.
this is true diversity. Bobblehead and big feet with, you know.
I don't know what
Wonky
this. Oh, see, here's the
Barbie.
denied one. That's one that he has blocked. So I don't know what I'm trying to do to him exactly, but he's
That's
like,
hilarious.
denied. Oops,
Does
what am
he
I doing
not
over
see
there?
that?
No, we have
'Cause it's
that's
denied.
on
Oh, here it is.
That's on Twitch,
funny.
and so there's a delay.
Yeah, there's a delay on Twitch. Yeah.
Yes. But
Yeah,
that's...
so you can go and
Oh,
sit
is
by
that
the
the
bench
deny?
now.
Let's see. What else can I do?
I'm being picked up by a strange woman in a park.
or
At least
or
I thought,
not.
just go with it. It could be
Oh,
Paris.
at least I have to be friends with you. I can't do any of these actions. I didn't even know we weren't friends. I don't know what this one. They have such weird names. Okay, there are other actions though. Let me find them.
So that's the action that plays.
When someone
Oh.
someone who's not a friend tries to do something
There's another one.
that requires friends only.
Did that just do what I think it just did?
I don't know what that was. Wait, okay, we gotta wait for the
Suffer my
delay.
finger.
Yeah, this will be blocked by YouTube now.
What? I don't know. You were
I
like,
don't think so.
I don't
He's
think that
just
was.
shaking his
I don't
finger.
think it was.
Was it?
Whatever.
I couldn't tell which way the hand was twisted.
It was an index finger too. It's
No, I
fine.
didn't see anything untoward.
Yeah, you were just like, no. That one too. I don't know what
Nice
the heck
dog.
was that.
Yeah.
Let me try it again. I think it's each different section gives you a different reject thing.
Zoop.
I don't know. No, wait, those were different though. Those two were different, weren't they?
Yes.
So, Robert, are we going to be getting something with FBX that I can't do with Cal3D? I'm
So
always looking for some exploits, some new thing that nobody's really tried yet.
new thing that nobody's really tried yet. Okay, so the FBX file is converted to Cal3D format before it's imported. So really, all you get that you didn't have before is the ability to do it all with just one file,
Whoa.
rather than picking up each individual mesh and the FBX format includes all. That one I've seen before.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, Jessica had showed me that one.
It's like flying away.
Yeah, you fly away. So what we end up with is, see, that's what I used to do in my judo class.
Jump over people.
Yeah, except they wouldn't dodge.
Oh,
So the FBX file collects together the information about the mesh, about the materials that go onto the mesh, and all of the different pieces of it can be given as a single collection and imported as a single collection. So somewhere we have a video showing the comparison between loading it up using the FBX import and loading it up as a 3D Studio export jobby.
Oh yeah, that'll be the ones that Polly and myself did. Yeah.
So that's the big difference.
Yeah.
Now
I'm guessing there's going to be a no at the end of this.
Well, I mean, it's not that we haven't really switched formats is the thing. So there's not anything new in Cal3D, but since it's a new take on importing information from a 3D format, we can play around with it. Like, so if you're making a room and you make a mistake in naming the skeleton root of the room, the import process will take care of that for you.
Okay. Yeah, I have noticed that it seems to be slightly flexible in whatever. I can just sort of say I'm going to throw this at you and see if you can handle it. Whereas I do have to be a bit more careful from inside Max.
Right. One of the things that's still on my to-do list has to do with, helping out with naming convention for lights, for example. And that's another thing that we can do. If you've got a 3D model and you want to put a light onto it, you have to know our secret sauce in order to get the light working right. But the import process can sort of take you by the hand a little bit and say, oh, well, this person said that this is supposed to be a light, so I guess we're just going to make it a light. And,
Yeah,
like I said,
you have to keep in mind that, I mean, it's probably the same with XSI, is that the way a light or lamp object in Max is not the same as a light or lamp object in Blender, or as it might be in XSI. So you've got all those, wouldn't say complications, but, again, for want of a better word, you've got all those complications in the sense of interpreting the data correctly relative to what the FBX thing is expecting to see.
Right.
The camera is the big one.
But that's essentially what FBX is supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does. If you put a lamp in, it'll come through as a light.
Yeah.
Right. If you use a Blender light, then it exports into FBX as a light object. We detect that and we pull that out.
Yeah.
But suppose you have SketchUp doesn't have lights, for example. But if you wanted a light in a SketchUp scene, you could, by naming convention agreement, call it light, and put the word omni, and my exporter could recognize that and change it into an actual light.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's on the to-do list, so we'll see how far I get on things like that.
Well, that sounds useful. I mean, obviously, I don't need it, but I know there's a lot of people that don't use Max, so.
Yeah, that's the advantage of the FBX stuff is that it opens creation to just about any 3D app that can handle FBX files.
Go from there. Now carry me around.
I think she should be like off for a while, just missing for a while.
Oh my gosh. He turned her into a basketball.
Yeah, but she came back.
I didn't do that at all.
You didn't do that?
You did. I was just trying to do something called puppet thumbs, and you were like, denied.
Yeah.
So when are we going to be able to make our own co-op animations?
The core animations?
You can make co-op
animations
that you can wear. That would be cool.
So, like I said, I have not done anything with the importing of animations. It just it pulls animations that it finds into the files. I think doing something so that FBX files would make some sort of understandable interpretation of animations from the file itself would be a separate project in and of itself, I believe. You can build them, though. You just have to do it in separate separate pieces. There's nothing special about any particular animation, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
We're playing cowball.
Yeah, cowball. Wait, no, I don't know.
Two. Why does he do that head thing at the end?
What his avatar?
Yeah.
What did he do at the end?
I don't know.
Here, I'll do it again. What was I trying to do? Puppet thumbs.
Okay, so that outfit will now get me banned from YouTube.
No, I think you're paranoid. Oh, that thing with his head where it swiveled around?
Yeah, that's a long-standing issue. It's like the head loses the thing that it's supposed to be focusing on.
Oh, so it's a gaze issue.
Yeah, so
it's a gimbal thing. It gimbals. It goes past the degrees of
Looks
rotation.
like lost interested in everything.
Yeah.
Is this your Alice in Wonderland? I've eaten the cake thing.
Oh, we had a flash mob called Broken Dolls. So like, see, she's like all stitched together.
Oh, no, that's too creepy.
Is that a bearded lady?
No, those are stitches. And she's also.
No. Oh, sorry, it was just the way that the hair was.
Just a
Oh, I see.
funky
Yeah,
angle.
no, she's got a face stitched on her face.
So gross.
And I actually made several different dolls.
Okay.
So
I don't want to see them.
you don't? I
No.
already put on a second one.
I'm prone to nightmares.
But look, this one is little though. Let's see.
Well, guys, I'm gonna get to bed, but it's been informative.
All right, send me that the animation that you have trouble with separating out the selected elements from.
You know what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna play. To be honest, I'm the type of person that likes to learn by doing stuff. So I'm gonna have a play.
Okay.
Myself.
I can't recommend that enough. If you're working on something and you're having trouble getting it through the FBX pipeline, send it to Robert.
Yeah.
Well, there's an open inventory for everyone. But I'm gonna have a fiddle as I normally do.
I have a feeling that this is what I think. I think it's going to work right first time.
Yay! Well, if it does, I'll buy you a donut. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna head off to bed. But
okay, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Yep. Until
See
next
ya.
time.
You were tired.
Right. So it's just us, and we are still live.
That's
Okay, well, that is just an ugly avatar.
what?
Yeah, no, that's just
The arrow missed.
I'm.
You don't think it was
I'm gonna go out
that
on
was
a
on
limb, and
purpose?
I'm going to think that I could probably make a better head than that one.
What? I mean, like the eyes blinking. I think it looks that way on purpose.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Holy Toledo, there's a lot of.
What are you doing?
I must have clicked on a spot trying to maneuver the room, and there are so many dance spots.
No, wait. I wonder if there's another one we can both. There we go.
I can't.
Oh, you left. Oh, there you're back. Wait, what's going on? Very nice. Mm-hmm.
So this is part of the room, is that right?
No, it's
No, these will be furniture items, I guess.
So the dance nodes are a furniture item that's got the no geometry but the animation attached.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be a lot of seat nodes.
yeah. Sometimes they have a little just circle, like a little shaft.
So that you can see where the item is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But all of these are obviously custom animations locked into custom seat nodes that have unique names to identify them.
Right.
There is some animation in this room. I don't know where it is. I think it's at the other end of the room.
Say, I wonder, Second Harvest was talking about
Here it
putting
is.
animations on an accessory and having that play.
Yes,
Now,
that was, I think, if I understand that right, that's basically what you discussed when we were doing the meetings, and we were trying to figure out what the accessories were doing within Blender. That you can have an animation, you can have an accessory animate, but the animation is relative to the accessory, not the avatar.
right. To your knowledge, is there a way of putting?
Not as far as I'm aware, no, because the accessory isn't a full avatar skeleton, so there isn't a reference, a frame of reference for the animation, because the skeleton for an accessory is just the attachment root and attachment node. That's it.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, we know that the avatar will play an animation if you stand it or sit it on an animated node.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any way to say this thing makes you do that thing.
Not for accessories.
Some other piece of clothing, though. Huh?
Well, yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I've just looked at furniture and rooms, and obviously most of the stuff to do with the avatars is either an auto-playing sequence or a triggered sequence based on the presence of a seat node, because that's obviously where the avatar stands, and when they stand there it triggers something or not, or you type something.
Catch me outside, how about that? How about that? How about that? Catch me outside.
So, yeah, I'm tempted to kick Jinxie now if she's doing stuff like this.
You won't be able to talk if I take my laptop, though.
Small price to pay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, accessories. I don't know whether it's possible. You might be able to do it if you did some of the debug hacking stuff.
Yeah.
But
I wonder if you had a dance animation and you built a pair of pants, I bet you could put the dance animation onto the pants, right? The pants?
In theory, yes, because the pants have to deform relative to the skeleton of the avatar.
Right. So there's only one skeleton that the pants would know about.
Yeah.
I know that people sell dance packs, right?
Yeah.
Just a collection of animations that you can play.
Yeah.
So that's got to go as something similar. Let's see here. Dave was talking about moods, but the moods only work in the classic client.
Yeah, because Jinxie was talking when we were talking about avatar animations, and we were trying to squeeze the information out of Dave in terms of what is the proper product ID that we should be deriving from for animations.
Right.
And he was saying that it's not what people have been doing, which is deriving from the base avatar. It's from another product, which is 10,000 something or other, I think, and that's what they should be being derived from, but they're not. So, I mean,
I didn't understand why you would replace a whole avatar just to put in a few animations.
I think at the time it was just because that was the only thing that was available. That there wasn't an empty product for moods or avatar animations, so people were just sticking them on the avatars which were available. So that's the ID 80 and 191.
And if they don't have replacement meshes, then what? It doesn't replace what you're wearing, or?
I don't know. I don't know how that works.
See, now I'm just exposing my ignorance.
That's good though.
For all the world.
You're learning though. What?
Takeaway, this is obviously a very bad product with too many polys. So.
What? No, these are all flat planes though. Look, each one is just one flat plane. See? That's not so bad. That's a lot less polygons than, probably the hair that the avatar is wearing or something.
If it works in the movies,
whoops.
That's what the beach scene in the recent Dunkirk movie was done with, just a load of silhouette cardboard cutouts.
Is that better?
No.
That's my Shannon avatar.
Okay.
That's Shannon's avatar that I stole from him and added a few things.
Okay.
So he's like a sheriff now. Anyway.
Well, I'm getting ready to go. Do you have any last questions for me?
Not as such. I think. The animation one was obviously covered earlier, but that's going to be the interesting one. Because obviously with I'm just going to show Blender instead of IMVU and dancing.
What?
Because obviously, the way that animation can be done, we can either use nodes and animate nodes, or we've got armatures. This is within Blender, so it should be interesting to see how animation relates to and what can be done with. This is just a simple animation, so it's just a node that goes back and forth. But would you be able? This probably speaks to what Second Harvest was saying in terms of are there any secret things that you can do? Because what might be interesting is to see what sort of complicated animations you could do with nodes, as opposed to having to resort to armatures or skeletons.
Right. So you had a room with 4 cubes in it and different animations on each of the 4 cubes. And for a while, I was using that as my test model for clarifying room animations. And I was able to export 4 different animations.
Yeah, I've got it on screen now.
One for each of the boxes that animates.
Yeah.
And it did not play them the way that they ought to have been played individually.
Yeah.
But I did get it so that they were each they were as good as they could be individually.
Yes.
But I could never, with those 4 animations, go ahead and switch back to that. With the individual 4 animations, I could not reconstruct the original. But, and that's because of a bug I assert in the Blender export.
Right.
I filed it as a bug and they promptly ignored me. But if you go to the export panel for FBX, I'll show you something that I did not know about before.
That's some fun animation.
Yeah, this is the room that I was working with. You've got like.
I haven't seen it.
It's super secret, or it was, until we went live and showed everybody.
It's
so
the super secret
if you take
room,
a look
everybody.
at the animation tab there.
Yep.
Waiting to catch up with the view.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah.
So
I don't see it shared.
You see there where it says all actions and NLA strips?
Yeah.
If you uncheck those, you can export the room animation as a single scene animation.
Yeah.
And if you import the room as a whole and that scene animation, then it will play everything just like you've got it all set up.
Yeah, I figured that might do something like that.
But if you share it in Zoom, then Robert can see it in real time.
I've seen the.
It's good. You don't need to
see
see
the room.
All
yeah,
right.
And that's probably the best way to put out stuff that is meant to all animate all together in a room.
Yeah. I'm just moving the mouse over the actual options just to get the tooltip pop up.
Yes, it doesn't really help very much, right?
It doesn't as such, but in this instance, it does provide some clues as to what Blender is doing, because I've during the sessions I'd been testing this to see what it was doing, and if those are selected and you export something, the structure of the data that comes out at the other end as an FBX is different than if you... so it's obviously doing... I mean, obviously it's doing something, but there's something within that structure that allows it to do what it should be doing as opposed to do what it is doing.
Right. So if you're looking at the actions in the action editor, you can see that the action is applied to certain objects.
Yeah.
That's on its and one of the objects that you can put it onto is the fake object, right?
Yeah.
What it looks to me like they are doing in the export process, and I'd have to delve into the code in order to verify this for sure, but they're sort of creating a matrix of the objects in the room and the actions that are available. And they're saying, well, what happens if this action is played on that object? And that's why in this circumstance, we'd end up with 16 separate animations.
Yes.
One of each action on each of the different boxes.
Yes. And that makes sense. That actually makes sense relative to what Blender does, because it treats the animations as data blocks, as objects in their own right, so that they can then be assigned to other things.
Right. And it would make sense if, as in some of the actions, the boxes stay in their original origin and do the different animation. And that would actually be, in fact, useful. And then you could make the box bouncing up and down gently in each of the four corners, and one of them, rotating or whatever. That's not what it does, though. It takes the mesh and it moves it to the origin of the box that it's playing the animation, and does the animation. So if you've got box number 1 and you're playing box number 2's animation, it'll take box number 1 and put it in box number 2's position and play box number 2's animation.
Yeah.
It's kind of useless that way.
Yeah.
But it does get everything all straightened out if you grab all of the animation and export it as a room animation.
Yeah. So it makes sense relative to the way that Blender's working. So then, yes, if you were wanting to, like with the scene.
Except for their bug.
Yes, allegedly.
I allege.
Yes, you allege strongly. So yes, I mean, I had thought that the export options in the animation section was because I found that some of the sequences would export. I mean, this was particularly with the avatar poses as well, that if you had multiple sequences that you were trying to export, it seemed better to disable the two options, the NLA strips and the all actions, so that it was forcing Blender to specifically write separate animation sequences for each of the poses. Otherwise it sort of glommed everything together and just didn't work as well, which is kind of the inverse of what you would want with the scene with a lot of stuff going on.
Right. So you're saying if you've got multiple poses, you wanted to have the actions.
Yes.
Right.
So it's kind of the inverse of what you would want for the rooms, where to get the room to work, you want all the animations to be exported within the context of their position relative to the room and in the root node and all that sort of stuff. But with the avatar poses, you want the context to be specific to the actual single animation as it applies to the avatar.
Right. I was going to mention Second Harvest was asking about how would you do paired animation, and in that case the export process has an assumption which gets in the way of that entirely, and that is the exporter is expecting one skeleton.
Yes.
And if you've got two avatars with two skeletons, we can't really.
That's never been possible.
Yeah, we don't really deal with it. But if you had a couple's animation and you put both actions onto one skeleton before you exported it and separated them using the action methodology, you could probably get both of those animations pulled out.
And this is kind of what I was saying to Jinxy in the last session, because I don't know if you can see on screen, I've got a couples Blender file.
Right.
And irony, this is where the capture and picture comes in handy. But that's kind of what I was trying to explain in the last session, is that you would create your pose on the primary avatar, which is the one that's at grid center. Then you would set up a secondary animation to match. And then at export, you would have the two sequences available in the action editor. But the only difference is just the rotational value that's assigned to the it's a local rotation value. So the animation that's assigned to the male character, in this instance the one on the left, the avatar, the animation is contextually relative to the bones of the avatar, not the position or the rotation of the object, the armature object. So you could create an animation or a pose for the male avatar, and it would still be usable on the female avatar, even though they're pointing in locally different directions, because the animation is relative to the armature and bone positions not the actual object position.
Right, and I imagine there's some methodology for transferring animation data from one to the other. If it's not just automatic, you say play this animation on her as well.
Yes, well, in theory, it should be that as long as the animation is in the animation list and it functions, it should be selectable and usable. I've not got to that point of testing that yet, but in the theory is that the animation just being based on bone positions rather than object position, you can have an animation assigned to either or, and either or animation sequence exported will work on, again, either or.
Right.
I'm leaving in 2 minutes. It's a 2-minute warning bell. I'm just telling.
So couples poses, I mean, at least within the context of Blender, it's doable and it's possible. The advantage of the FBX stuff basically means that in theory, rather than exporting the animations individually and rotating the avatars around correctly, which you would need to do for Cal 3D, with FBX, so long as the sequences are in the action list, it should in theory just export whatever actions it finds, and depending on whether it does actually do what I suspect it will, it'll work regardless.
Yeah. I know nothing beyond that of how cooperative animations work, so I'd have to do some research on that.
The person to ask would be Dave. I don't know if we can ever get Dave to come to one of these, but maybe.
Not anymore. He's working on Ego now.
Yeah, but what if he was like working at home and like it was like Tuesday, Thursday at 4 p.m. Maybe he would stop by. Maybe. And then because he talks a lot, he would stay for a long time.
Well, that's a plan. Okay, Ken.
Yep.
It was good talking to you again.
And you.
And I know it's not your thing, but happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Happy Black. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it really does.
Today's Cyber Monday anyway.
Yeah, so it's happy Cyber Monday.
I like that one. Happy Cyber Monday. All right. I'll talk to you Wednesday, if not sooner.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Bye for now. We are stopping the stream.
Okay.